Hi guys, this video is about multiplying and dividing surds. So you should have already watched the video on adding and subtracting surds, as we'll refer to some of that information. So when we're multiplying surds, we're going to use the rule that we looked at yesterday, last lesson. That was the square root of xy is the same as writing the square root of x times the square root of y. So we're going to extend on this rule. So when we're multiplying surds, we use the following rule. So as you can see, there's our rule that we looked at in our last lesson, and in this lesson all we're doing is we're introducing values in front of our root sign, or coefficients in front of our root sign. And when we multiply them together, they become the product of their values, so AB, and that sits in front of our root sign. So similarly, when we are dividing surds, we also apply the division rule as we looked at it in our last lesson. So when we have x divided by y, that's the same as the square root of x over the square root of y. When we have a coefficient in front of our square root, that's the same as writing those as a divided by b. So let's have a go at putting one of these into practice. Okay, so for our first example, we have the square root of 7 times the square root of 3. Now that can be represented as the square root of 7 times 3. And remember, that's using this rule here. So that's from our lesson, our last lesson. And the square root of 7 times 3, so 7 times 3 is 21. 21 doesn't have any square factors, so we can check that. They are 1, 21, 3 and 7, so that's as simplified as our root can be. For this one here, we also can write this using our dividing surds rule just here, and we can write that as the square root of 18 over the square root of 3, which is then the same as the square root of 18 divided by 3, and 18 divided by 3 is 6, so that becomes the square root of 6. Okay, now let's have a look at a more complex example. Okay, so in this example, we are required to apply both our subtraction that we looked at last lesson and multiplication. Whenever we have brackets, we can expand by the value outside using the distributive law, and that means we multiply the outside value by both the values inside. So the 6 times the square root of 5 multiplied by 3 times the square root of 15, also multiplied by negative 2 times the square root of 8. So we can write this in expanded form. That's the first thing that we're going to do. So write in expanded form. And remember, we're using the distributive law. So that's going to be written as, so let's start with our starting values. And we can expand that to 6 square root 5 times 3 square root 15 plus 6 square root 5 times negative 2 square root 8. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to simplify each of our multiplications. So we've got a 6 and a 3 here as our coefficients. So 6 times 3 is 18. And then using our multiplication rule up the top here, we can rewrite our two surds as 5 times 15. The same applies for this next one here. We have 6 and negative 2, so that becomes negative 12. And again, we can rewrite our surds as 5 times 8. Alright, once we've done that, we're going to simplify the inner part of our surd. And that's going to give us 18 square root 75 minus 12 square root 40. Alright, now once we have that, we're going to do our next spot, which is going to be to simplify each of the surds. And that's using the same process as last lesson. So you might like to simplify your surds just off to the side as an extra note. So the square root of 75 has factors of 75, 5 and 15, and 25 and 3. And again, we want to check that for our square factors, which is this one. So that means that we can write this as 18 square root 25 times 3 plus negative 12, and our factors of 40 is square root of 40, so we have 40, 1, 2, 20, 4 and 10, and 5 and 8. So out of there we do have the square factor of 4, so let's use that one. So 4 times 10. And then we go about simplifying again by reducing our surds. So we have 18 square root 25 times square root 3 plus negative 12 square root 4 times square root 10. Square root of 25 is 5, which is 90 to this n times the square root of 3, plus we have 12 times the square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is 2, so that's going to make it negative 24 square root of 10, which can be written as 90 square root of 3 minus 24 square root of 10. And that's our final answer, because we can't simplify 10 anymore, which means we can't add those values together. Okay guys, so that's how you multiply and divide surds.